So our midpoint, we have finally reached the midpoint. Yeah, we've been droning on for hours and hours, and we still have 50 games to go. And we probably have more to say about them, so strap in, guys. This next game just came out this year. Stuffed Fables. Stuffed Fables was 77 on Luke's list, 43 on mine. 43. So we talked about Mice and Mystics in a previous episode. I forgot exactly what number it was. I had a problem. It just wasn't very adult friendly, very, very lucky, very, very long. Just kind of on the face of it. I think this is an improvement on the system. I think that, so in this game, you're going through an adventure book, and it has that same spiral bound map book that Near and Far has, which is pretty cool. So like it gives you more flexibility in terms of like the land you can explore and stuff. And it does have story attached to each land. So like one side would be the map, and then the other side is like storybooks. And as you're moving through the different maps, you're going to step on things, or you're going to beat monsters that will trigger stories along the side. So you're like, it's very, very integrated. I would say Stuffed Fables is more like if Mice and Mystics was like a dungeon crawler, this is more like an RPG where there's not, the combat's there, but it's super streamlined, super simple. And there's also room to like make lots of skill checks. So like you're going to draw different color dice out there. And if you have enough red dice, you can make brawn checks. If you have green dice, you can make agility checks. And, and I think there's a lot of imaginative stuff you could do with that. So there's, not to spoil stuff, but like you're going to go through the adventure and you're going to ride roller coasters. And you're going to negotiate with the Goblin King or something, and you could do that all based in the same dice-driven system.
If you didn't get the reference for that, people, shame on you. Watch some more movies.
Yeah, so you could do all sorts of stuff. I've only played through a couple of the scenarios. My daughter isn't quite old enough to enjoy this, but when she is, boom, it is right there for her. So it still has some dice problems. There's still some times where you draw some dice and you want to do something, you draw the exact wrong dice and you can't do a thing. That's a big problem for me. So I still don't think it's like a great adult, like young at heart game. Like I think we're all looking for that. But it's another step in the right direction. I'm looking forward to what else happens with it. So that is Stuffed Fables. Luke, what'd you think?
Pretty much the same. I mean, it's mostly geared towards, I think, families and that, which is why it's not one that I've gone as crazy for, but friends of mine have asked, have I got something that I can do? And I normally suggest Mice and Mystics. I can now say, you can also look at Stuffed Fables if Mice and Mystics is hard to get hold of. I like the theme with it. I think they've done a good job with this whole sort of creepy, nightmarish thing with the stuffed animals and that. And yeah, I think it's solid. It's just not one I'm going to be playing because I don't have like families of my own to suddenly play it with. But it's one that I usually recommend for others who do have the families. So I still think it's solid.
Yep, no, it's a really good one. Not the best. There's still some design holes in it, but definitely better. We're getting there. Slowly we're getting there. So that was Stuffed Fables, our number 50. 50. So 49 is your baby.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, people can argue on this one because I know we brushed over whether we were going to have a, one versus many or team versus teams as technically co-ops, but I think you allowed a couple on the list where I thought, well, if you're going to do that, I'm going to do this. So it's like, I'm allowed to bring in one.
There it is.
Assumption, yes. And I know people are thinking, hang on a minute. This is not a co-op. Well, for most of you it is. In this, it's
a game in which there is cooperation.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we said. And, the majority of the time there is only one person on the bad side, maximum two. Other than that, there is probably a good 6+ players that are playing a co-op game. And it's a murder mystery deduction, so one person is giving out clues based on a murder that has happened. You've got cards in front of you. Some are the means of the murder itself. Some are just evidence left at the scene. And the murderer, in a sort of nighttime phase, kind of like a la Resistance, will pick two of these cards, one weapon, one means of killing, one evidence, and that's what it was done with. The forensic scientist then draws these tiles that have clue words on them, like the victim's build, motive, location, that kind of thing, cause of death. And with these clues, he cannot talk, but the others investigators on the good side with him are trying to figure out which two cards he's pointing them towards. And the murderer is obviously trying to, and his accomplice in larger player games, is trying to sway them away. This is so much fun with the right group of people. It is unbelievable. I mean, where did I put this on? 8? It's like,
Number 8. Yes,
yeah,
number 8.
ridiculous. This never goes badly with, a ton of people played it. I was like, because most of these sort of games, you go, oh, I don't want to be a basic villager or investigator because that's just boring. Here, though, you're still playing a cool deduction game. But yeah, I love being the forensic or the murderer more, or the witness. But even just being a normal investigator in this, I just like, oh great, I get to play this deduction game. Fine, let's try and figure this out. And you are still working with players on your side, and it doesn't take long for you to figure out who technically is on your side. You may be ho-hum about one or two people, but you tend to have gone, yeah, he's with me, and at the end of the day, the forensic scientist knows who everybody is, so there is still the co-op aspect. So I can get why people would be a little bit like, that's an odd one for the list, but in terms of sheer enjoyment, this one is possibly my favorite social deduction game that exists. It is that good, and the expansion, as you can see from the box, Undercover Allies, has only improved it.
I can't wait to play.
You've not played this?
About that. I've not played it.
What? Shocking.
I want to.
How can you, as no one got this in your area? Seriously, no one you know has got this game.
We have other things.
Explain yourself. Too busy playing your game that's coming up in 3 times.
Yeah, that game is still going on, by the way.
Not surprising. We'll get to that, but yeah.
Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. I'll trust you on that one. I really do want to play. Okay, so here's a game. I really like this game. I think Luke is pretty good on it. 71 on his list, 48 on mine. This is our 48 overall. So I managed to nail it exactly. Magic Maze. So this was a Spiel des Jahres nominee, I believe. I don't think it won.
No, I don't think it did.
I don't think it won, but I think it was a nominee. I'm not sure. Anyway.
It should have won, I think.
It's really... Okay, so Magic Maze, a co-op game, goes up to 8 players. The theme is really silly. Like your adventure is in a mall, and you have to go to your...
It's stupid.
It's really dumb. So like, you're wizard and you're barbarian or whatever it is. And you're like, you're exploring this hex base or the tile based map. And you start on a little tile and you have to kind of explore the different areas. So you're kind of expanding the map out. You have to find your shop. You have to...
Yes, we're not kidding here.
You have to, the elf has to buy his bow and the dwarf has to buy his axe. Which means, you have to kind of be out there and then you rush to the exits. So a couple of things about the game. So like it'd be a basic game if it wasn't for these like extra elements. So number one is real time. So there is a definite timer that you have to follow. And number 2, there is 0 talking. You cannot talk in this game. You must, instead you're kind of communicating with each other silently. So each player does not control a character. They are in charge of a quote unquote direction. Every single person at the table has a specific thing that they can do. So like you are in charge of turning them left. I am in charge of turning them right. You're in charge of moving them north, north, south, east, west. So I'm in charge of putting them north, and I can also go up escalators. So if you want a certain character to go north, or if you want a couple of characters to go east, you have to use this tapper thing, and you just and you have to pray to high heaven that they get.
I think I forget. I think I call it the Pawn of Judgment.
It is so outrageously funny when so the game is cool both ways. Like the game is cool when you're actually on a string, you're understanding each other. Again, no verbal communication. You can't even point right and left. You just have to tap the thing over and over again. And God forbid you're one of those people that have a north direction and an escalator in you. So you're you have stuff to figure out okay, what does he mean and everything. So it's you're very limited communication. You have to everybody has to look at the board and figure out what needs to be done. Because everybody's controlling all the characters at once. So you have to figure out, do I have to move the wizard? Do I have to move the thing? God forbid you move the wrong one. It's it's fun when you win, and it's just hilarious when you lose. Don't lose too often because you will get frustrated and you won't want to play this game anymore. But when your group figures it out and they figure out the communication of it, it is amazing fun. There's also points where because it's on a sand timer, And if you go on a certain spot at a certain time, you can actually flip the sand timer. So you have to like wait to go on that spot in order to flip the timer. And that's also like limited communication as well. Like you really have to get in each other's mind. It is co-op in the best sense. It really, really is. Like a lot of co-ops, you're playing against the game and you're basically playing a multiplayer solitaire because all the information is open and, you know, you're just kind of like doing everything and everyone's like, oh, I agree. Oh, da, da, da. This one, you have to cooperate. Everybody has to be on the same page. There cannot be a weak link. There cannot be one person on their phone kind of doing another game while everybody's involved. It is all real time. I can't say enough about this game. Do not play the solo. Don't do it. It says 1 to 8. No. It's the way they do it is just like basically a different game, and I won't get into that. But as a co-op, really, really highly recommended. You only put it at 71 though, Luke. I think you agree with everything. Why so low?
Well, I mean, the solo mode's one thing to that. I think the expansions needed to really make it shine though, because I think with the base set, you kind of get bored with the way the maps go quickly, because there's only so much variety in there. When you get the expansion, I think it was called like Emergency Maximum or something like that.
Maximum something, yeah.
Maximum security. And there you get like the guards wandering around, you get like places that only certain characters can go because they're short, like the dwarf can only go under this bit because he's short. You've got cameras to worry about, and I think when you add those elements in, it gets really, really good. The other thing is the player count, because the most I've played this with is usually with 3, 4, maybe 5 players, but 4 seems to be a good sweet spot because each person gets 2 things to do. When you change the player count, I don't think the scaling works as well, because some people end up with 1 thing to do, some people have 2, and if you have like the full count of 7, 8 players doing this, it is just pure pandemonium. Like it's one thing to say you've got to get in people's heads, but with 8 of you doing it, it is just pure chaos. In a funnish way, but it can get a little bit frustrating, because when you've got 8 of you, chances of you winning are quite slim, unless you're really tuned. So I just think there's a scaling thing. I think you need the expansion to make it shine. But, especially with young ones and that, I have enjoyed all my games with it. It has been good fun. I just think you need those extra elements. And it is fun taking that pawn of judgment as I go in it and just throwing on something like that. It's your turn. Because you'll get it and you'll tap it a couple of times. And it's not the first time you do it. It's the second, third, fourth, and consecutive time you do it to the same person who hasn't twigged what you want him to do. So you start off nice and light, and then suddenly, and then suddenly the rage sets in. So it is good fun. I just think it could scale better. I don't think it needed to go up to 8. I think like 5 max would have been fine. Even 4 is good. But I feel like you really do want a fixed player count with it.
Okay.
Otherwise, solid. I still think it should have won the spiel. I still think it was solid.
Yeah, I really like it. It's unique. I've not played a game quite like it, so that definitely. If you guys have followed the entire list, you know I prize that, and I'm going to give games extra points when they're unique.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, Magic Maze. That was our number 47. Number 48. Sorry about that. 47. I keep on messing that up. I have a system here. I have to change the system. This is 47. So it's kind of in the middle of both of our lists, and I think that's appropriate place for it. Mine, number 50, Luke, number 68. I think it's kind of like there's not really that much of a difference in our opinions of this. Rock solid game, Pandemic: The Cure. Our first official Pandemic on the list.
One of many.
Yeah, believe me, it's coming. So Pandemic: The Cure, Pandemic the dice game. So this game came out a bunch of years ago, so you're not going to hear too much about it. There's been one expansion. I'd say the expansion is excellent, but overpriced.
Yeah.
So way overpriced. It adds a 5th. Well, anyway. So Pandemic, you know, you're going around and you have disease cubes and, you know, you're in the different areas. The disease cubes, instead of being the regular cubes, are dice, and you roll the dice, and it basically has a rule set for, okay, when you roll the dice, when you get a certain of the same number, it'll start to explode along the tracks. Like you have these discs that represent the entire world, and the dice, you just roll dice every turn. And if you roll a bad run of dice in a certain place, it's just going to keep on exploding and exploding and exploding. And you're going around from zone to zone to zone. You're curing, or you're quote unquote treating. So which is move the dice from the world to like a CDC area, so to speak. And then you're using your samples to find the cure, which is usually, okay, I forget exactly. It's been a while since I've played this. But yeah, so you're doing this motion of going to certain areas, taking the dice off of the world and using those dice to develop a cure. And then once it's cured, then you can just like get rid of a whole bunch of them and everything. So dice, it's dice. And you have, so that's the disease dice. You also have your personal set of dice. And that's kind of where you are actually rolling and affecting things yourself. You roll the dice and you use the dice to select your actions. So you can't just do whatever you want. You have to like roll the boat in order to move. You have to roll the ship in order to fly. You have to roll the treatment needle in order to treat. If you don't do it, you can push your luck. So you can just roll again. But if you get a biohazard symbol, you advance this tracker. And if you get too many biohazard symbols among the players, you're dead. If you hit certain thresholds and biohazard symbols and you hit epidemics, you have to roll the disease dice again. So you have to really be careful how much you roll. It is a lot of rolling. I think this game is like rock solid. Like it's not a game that I'm going to pull out like every time or even most times. Like I said, I haven't played it in a couple years, but I still keep it in my collection because it is a family-friendly version of Pandemic. If it's a new player, I will play this game before the base Pandemic. I will. I have played this game in therapy. So in therapy, I do a lot of what they call, yeah, I know, right? But I do a lot of what they call exposure therapy.
Not your personal therapy, right? I was getting confused. I thought, what's this helping you with?
Hey, psychotherapist, I want to play this board game today. Yeah.
Yes.
I work with a lot of kids, teenagers who are working on their anxiety. So this game generates a lot of tension and anxiety. So because, your diseases are filling up in the area and they do it so slowly or over turns. And, if you don't get to a certain place, if you don't cure that thing, then South America is going to fall to bubonic plague. And that's the scary thing. And of course, I'm me, so I play it up and everything. So I help the kid get into the tension of it. And then when they roll and they finally like succeed and like do whatever they're supposed to do, it's like, yay, there's a big tension release. And then you kind of process afterwards how did it feel to be anxious and take yourself down from the anxiety, whatever it is. The fact that I can do that in that context, A, that generates that kind of tension, and B, is family friendly enough that I can play this with like non-gamers. It really speaks a lot for it. So I'm going to keep it in my collection. I really love the expansion. I really love that it adds a 5th disease cube and some of the other little things it adds. Way overpriced. Come on. It's just dice and a couple of new rolls and everything. But even the base game is good. So I'm going to be able to recommend Pandemic: The Cure. I'm sure you don't like it for those exact reasons because you're not a psychotherapist. But
I put 68. I still think it's good.
Yeah, you still think it's good. So did you basically agree, like the the tension and the ease of it is kind of the draw?
Yeah, it gets to that point. I mean, there's a lot more luck in this one just because the dice can just hose you in a sense, particularly when you're pushing your luck. But I enjoyed it. I think mainly just because with some of the other Pandemics that we'll see eventually, I was saying I've just preferred playing them. But I still play this one, and there are 1 or 2 Pandemics that aren't on this list at all. So, it's not like every single Pandemic's on there. So, yeah, I mean, I still give The Cure props.
And it's a very different game. Very different game.
I just don't think I own it anymore. I think I sort of played it quite a fair bit and went, yeah, this is decent, but I'm not the one who's likely to be bringing it out. Somebody else will.
Right. All right. So that was our 47 Pandemic: The Cure. 46. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So Luke had XCOM, which was a game that he loves and I didn't love so much. Here is my game. This was not on Luke's list at all. I think if he had the list went to 150, he would have found a way to not put it on that list as well.
I would have changed the genre that this game is, so it wasn't even eligible.
This game is number 2. Number 2 of how many games that I have played. So this is our 46 overall. That is the average that turned out.
Yeah, 2 to 111. This is the difference.
Oh, wow. Here we go.
It probably makes more sense if it was upside down, to be honest. But
Mage Knight. I love it. So this is Vlada Chivato's original dungeon. Well, not a dungeon because you're adventuring. It's an adventure game. So you start off as a mage knight. You have one character and you are exploring the land and you are beating monsters. And eventually you're taking down keeps and monasteries and it builds up to where you're taking on the castle itself. So that's the kind of thematics of it. In terms of the mechanics of it, it's a card-driven system, and it's a very heady card-driven system. I mean, it is about as complicated, heavy Euro-inspired a card system as possible. The hand management is through the roof. You have doubles. It's double use cards. So you can either like use it for the basic function, move and attack and block and whatever, or you can use its bottom function activating it with mana. So that's where the spells come from to like do an awesomer thing. So you have to kind of manage which side you're going to do. Every single turn takes forever. All right, Luke is falling asleep. It's a complicated adventure game. Fine, done. Okay, so it's very popular in the solo community. It's the most popular game in the solo community. If you're watching this and you're not aware of that kind of end of things, know that this game is the #1 solo game. Like the #1. It's not even close. Other games, like the other games pretend to the throne. No, this game is it. Because of the adventure nature of it and because of the complex, rich card play. It is a competitive mode, which I don't even touch. I just don't, because the downtime in this game is horrific. It is bad. Yep, that's. See, I'm not going to shirk away from. Unlike what you did with XCOM, where you just kind of like threw the bats thing in there at the end, I will look at you straight in the face, people, and tell you the downtime in this game is a horror show. Never, ever play this game at 4, even 3. You better have veteran players you're playing at 3. And that's co-op or competitive. Competitive, you're not working together. You're just like doing stuff. There's a whole like layer of PvP that's just like this crazy. I don't understand it. It's not quite intuitive or anything. I just like throw it out. Cooperative though, as like a 2-player cooperative game that I know I know the other character. So like you can kind of storm a castle together, and it's going to take you about a half hour of doing nothing to plan your assault on the castle, but you are cooperating the entire time. You're doing this, you can get this, I can get this. And it is so good. The puzzle to payoff ratio in this game, hard puzzle, but at the end of it, you are going to sack cities. You are going to feel awesome. I love Mage Knight. Having said that, I know why you don't need it. So it is what it is.
I say I love the passion behind it, yeah. But I mean, you pretty much listed most of the reasons I don't like it, though, as your things. I mean,
I get it.
There's been basically one giant heady puzzle that takes 4 hours plus to finish. I mean, you said like, oh, you're going to storm this castle. Great. Half an hour later, and you're still planning it. It's like, well, when are we going to storm it? This isn't Lord of the Rings. It's like, we should be able to get into this now. On top of that, like I say, it is horrendously complex and convoluted. I mean, I have tried the competitive mode, and yes, that's horrible. The co-op mode is better, but even then, you say it is a top solo game, and yeah, it isn't up there in the rankings. Everyone calls this the best solo game ever. So when does anyone ever play this with 2, 3, or 4? Because just
because something's the best solo game ever doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Sure, but I've seen like one game of this like recently where someone did play like 3 or 4 players, and I think we managed to get through the entire explanation, setup, play, and takedown of Anachrony, and they still had at least an hour to go before they finished. It just got ridiculous, but I remember the downtime being, even in co-op mode, the downtime's pretty mad, because it's still taking it in turns, so it's not like it's simultaneous play. And on that, like, just being really complicated, you've got to explain a ton before you can even get started. You're constantly thinking about this stuff, and yeah, I get where the market for this one is. If you're really more interested in the puzzles than you are the thematic experience, then fine. Because I think the theme of this game is destroyed when you make it a huge heady puzzle. And another game coming up later has the same problem. But I don't think we didn't put Legends of Andor on this list, did we? Or did we put it earlier?
It was we passed it. That was 91.
Yeah, that was 91. Yeah. Similar problem. You have this nice looking, rich, immersive system, and then you turn it into a puzzle game. And suddenly the immersion is gone because what you're doing as a puzzle doesn't make sense with everything else. And like I say, I get the market for this, but I remember the plays I've had of this where I'm thinking it's taking me forever just to get across the map. It's like
forever across this mountain. That's it.
Yeah, it's like you're playing it in real time. So the time it takes me to get from one side of the map to the other is like real time if I just went outside and walked to the South Downs. It's like it'd take me the same amount. And at the end of it, you've kind of gone into a couple of caves, gone to a few villages and eventually got to the point. You say eventually in quote unquote, got to going after the castle. It's I get a lot of people love this to bits, and fair play to them. It's obviously for them, but I cannot stand this game.
You're looking at one of them right now.
I know. Totally it's fun listening to you talk about it as raves and that, but I knew this game was going to be the the one in the middle, so I just cannot stand this game. But I've got no problem with anyone else loving it. It's just not for me at all.
Again, the puzzle to payoff ratio is excellent. That you will be rewarded for your puzzling by sacking an entire castle
if you finish. If you don't finish, you don't get the payoff. Yes.
As you like to say, fair play, fair play. Okay, so that is 46 overall. My number 2 overall, my over 2 game overall, my over 2 co-op overall, which is Mage Knight. Okay, so let's get back to some ordinary games that both of us kind of enjoy. Actually, no, this is low. This is low on your list. So this is one of my favorites. This is when I first got into co-ops. This was one of my first. Still enjoy it to this day. Can't find a lot of people who want to play with me, which is too bad because I still play it anytime I can. Space Alert. Oh, another Vlada game. Look at that.
Might be a designer thing, who knows?
Didn't even realize I paired them up. How brilliant. These games could not be more different. And it's coming from the same dude. Okay, so this was 96 on Luke's list. So he's not as impressed with it as I am. 15 on mine. This is a real-time game, similar to like the Kitchen Rush or whatever it is, but instead of putting actual timers down, you have a soundtrack. Listen to that. A DVD or a CD actually does the thing. Now you can get it on app pretty easily. And it's a spaceship, and you have to program your movements on this spaceship according, like in this time phase, to deal with the different threats. So the app is going to talk about, time equals 7, threatened zone red or whatever it is. So what that means is by the time your little time tracker hits 7 in the second phase, the resolution phase, that thing is going to hit. So you have to blow it up before then. So obviously with your turn 6, your turn 5, your turn 4, you have to set up where you're shooting and you're powering the guns with energy. So like people always forget to do that. They love to fire the guns. They don't like to actually put the power into it. So it's, it's program movement, and so you'd go through this first phase and the app is yelling at you, and there's also limited information in the sense that like it goes dark sometimes, you can't communicate, that whole thing. So there's external threats, there's internal threats, and they all hit at different times, and you have to be prepared with program movements that activate at the exact times that you need them to, or your ship's going to get blown to bits. So it has that thing of like Galaxy Trucker, where there's like a time phase where you're building up a bunch of stuff and you're programming out your movements and whatever it is. And then there's a resolution phase where it all kind of crumbles down and turns to crap. When this, again, it's one of those games like Magic Maze. When it goes wrong, it can be hilarious, but then it gets old if it's too wrong too often. But if you can get a group that you're on the same wavelength and you're on a string, it's like, oh, I'm going here, you're going here, you're doing this, you're doing that. I'm firing the lasers in turn 8. Okay, I need to put the energy in on turn 7, and you're putting those face down cards that way. It is so satisfying to actually get through one of these. I really, really love this game. Expansion makes it better, but it's not necessary. The base game is enough. That is Space Alert.
Nah,
Anything?
It's fine. I mean, I think the programming aspect I don't latch onto as much. Most of my games I play, I don't think have a programming aspect to them. And you say eventually win this one. This is a hard one to win because you're trying to find that group that's well tuned is quite hard. I mean, this isn't one that I feel that you can play with just randoms very much. You kind of need people who know what they're doing with it. And, the soundtrack's not bad, although it makes me feel like the game's a little... Well, it's good that they got an app for it now, because otherwise I'd be comparing this to, like, basically a step up from Atmosphere. Because, you're playing that roll and move with a VHS, well, now you're playing a co-op with cards and a DVD. It's like, it feels like the next step up. But, the soundtrack's alright, although one thing that drove me nuts recently was there was a convention I went to, and I was trying to teach people how to play... something like Empires of the Void 2, or like one that sort of biggish game. We were playing a proper game, and then next door to us, people who clearly just haven't got any care about anybody else in the room. We're playing Space Alert. So we're listening to that going on constantly with the soundtrack and them shouting at each other while we're trying to teach games that, other Euros were in the room. It's like, seriously? Come on, have a bit of courtesy. Go to a different room.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was, like, getting a bit annoying listening to it again. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's okay, but I think it feels a little bit more mechanical than it does immersive for me. And I think that's mainly my problem I have with Vlaada Chvatel's games in general or something. It feels like it's more about the mechanic of it rather than the thematic immersion. And with co-ops, actually, to be fair, with a lot of games, I'm more interested in the thematic immersion. But with co-ops especially, it's like, it can be a bit of luck. It can be a little bit sort of random places. But if I'm getting into it, then fair props. And a lot of the top 40 that we're going to get to is going to repeat some of that. But the ones that are just purely mechanical, I feel like, not as much. And as you say, you need a well-tuned group, or this does not work.
I can't get it to the table because I haven't found that group yet, but I'm not getting rid of it. I cannot wait for the people to be like, oh, what's that? Let's play that. Yeah, Space Alert.
Yeah, it just needs that group, and I don't think I know anyone who owns it, let alone can be a fine-tuned group.
There you go. All right, so this next one is a little bit of surprise. I'm actually really surprised it made your list at all. Very few people, like, this game really came and went. And I think if Z Garcia hadn't done a review of it, nobody would have heard of it. It's been kind of that obscure. No, wait, I'm skipping. Sorry.
I was going to say, hang on a minute. You call this one obscure and, like, wrong.
This one's the opposite of obscure. Okay, Luke, I'm going to need you to roll up them sleeves and show off those guns to show us this next game. Number 44, 18 on Luke's list, 92 on my list.
Jesus Christ. This is heavy, all right? Know how much I suffer for you guys.
Oh, Arkham Horror, the original.
I'm going red in the face because this is heavy to lift. I mean, this is a... What was it? Can you see the... Yeah, this is covering up the... I can literally cover up the whole webcam with this box. It is ridiculous. And that's just because it doesn't contain just Arkham Horror in it. I mean, that's the... Was it? There's a guy in the UK that does it. And this is like a map of Innsmouth, sort of etched onto the board. But the reason why this is so huge is because it's not just... Teeting on my legs. Arkham Horror, it's also got Eldritch Horror in here. So both of those games are in here in full, and you know how bloated they've both got. Like, I've got everything for both games. But, all the rulebooks in here, the boards, it's got multiple levels. So, I mean, I take, one level off, there's tokens, and below there's more. So there's a ton in here, and granted, I will admit, this one is waning on me a little bit. Not Eldritch, I still like Eldritch, but Arkham mainly because, like you would Space Alert, trying to find the group that's willing to put the investment into this is becoming difficult. Not to mention, trying to remember all the rules to the game is proving difficult. It's caused a bit. Actually, I didn't have the webcam on my thing, so let me grab another thing on there. See if I can find some Arkham specific stuff. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of weird, but I mean, you got all the cards, you've got all the sort of tokens laid out, and there is some Eldritch stuff in there as well. But some people will recognize some of the Arkham bits and bobs. But yeah, it's a pretty good box, but it does mean that it's never leaving the house. Because I'm not carrying this to a game night. But
you gotta get a little wagon, like a little red wagon.
Yeah, I need it, yeah. In one of those portals. But, I mean, I still love Arkham Horror as a game. It's just weighing on me because it's hard to get to the table with a group of players. I'd have to read the rules again. In Eldritch Horror, even though it is getting bloated, it is still a bit more streamlined than Arkham Horror. But anytime I will get a chance to play this, or the times I remember playing this, it is still enjoyable. If you like the Cthulhu mythos, this one, a lot of the other ones feel more like adventure games. So, I mean, Eldritch particularly, it's more like Indiana Jones with a bit of Cthulhu thrown into it. And even another one we'll get onto later or something, has horror elements, but it still feels more adventure-ish. This one I felt was more horror. You were playing in Arkham, you had to, everybody knows the whole Cthulhu thing. Cthulhu Ancient One's coming, you're investigating, you fight gribbly monsters, and get encounters, and have to shut down the portals. Most people know how these work. But the original Arkham, I just loved because it was so horrific in places. I mean, the encounters you did were pretty graphic. The whole look of the game, the theme of it was very sort of like horrific. Like, if this turned into a movie, this would be your R-rated horror movie. And to be fair, we still need an R-rated horror Cthulhu movie. I think it would be great if someone could do it right. Not Sam Raimi, because that would just be gory as hell. But but yeah, the original Arkham I just felt was weird. There were some pictures in there that are just downright creepy. One picture of an ancient one is literally like this giant head with teeth, like opening up as two cultists are chucking this lady into its gob. It's like, what? Seriously? That's dark. And then the other ones is a spider-related one. I don't know, but it looks like a really groaning face with like spider legs and stuff like that, and it's just freaky as all get out. But yeah, as a co-op experience, it works. You work together. You tell this rich, immersive, thematic story. I just wish it wasn't as bloated as it was. I do wish it was easier to get to the table. And yeah, Eldritch Horror and another one has come out and kind of surpassed it in terms of ease of play. But yeah, I still remember some great times with this one.
Okay, so I'm cool with like large games as long as like I'm into the story and everything. I guess the thing that Arkham does in terms of the streamlining is like you have way less control of your fate in Arkham than you do in Eldritch. In Eldritch, if you build your character well, you're probably going to do pretty well. Very probably, because you're rolling dice for everything, but you're rolling a lot of dice for Eldritch, and there's a lot of different ways to kind of like turn things into successes, blah 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 blah. In Arkham, I just don't think they cared.
It's all right. I'm just putting the box back together. I am listening.
It's okay. Hey, look, man. I know you gotta get the thing worked out, and your muscles are all sore now. And you're kind of bending, stretching your lower back and everything. So.
The things I do for podcasts.
It's like they didn't, and this is not to say bad stuff and about the intention of it. I just don't think that Richard Launius cares whether that you sat there 7 hours and you lose the dice. I just don't think he cares. I do. I don't want to sit there having that long a time. Like there's a randomness to length ratio that I think that games should be attuned to. The longer a game, the less that the actual outcome of what you do should be subject to randomness. I'm okay with card RNG. I'm okay with like different monsters out of a bag or whatever it is. But like when the thing that you're doing, like closing a gate or whatever it is completely dependent on a dice. There's not a lot of mitigation, whatever it is. And you've sat there for however long, 3, 4, 5 hours. Like this game is old, we're talking 80s, the original design?
The 80s, yeah. But I mean, this Fantasy Flight one's very different from that one. I forget when this one came out though. Early 2000s? Yeah.
Yeah, this was like 2004, somewhere around there was the original design. But like, I think they took that sensibility of you're in it for the experience. And if you win, great. If you don't, you're probably not. Yeah. Whatever. So like, I think they made Eldritch Horror more of a game where there's things that are in your control. And again, an adventure game, we'll get to Eldritch Horror. You haven't heard it yet. That is not by accident. Another game that is higher on the list. But I still kind of recognize it as an OG in the realm. It's still on my list. It made number like 92, which is, I've played a lot of co-ops. So the fact that it made the list, there's a lot of good co-ops that have not made my list. So it's still on there. I will still, play it when it hits the table. So that is our number 44. That is Arkham Horror. Yep. Okay. Okay, people, you are going to notice that we have a jump cut in here where we're talking about the last game and then it all of a sudden jumps. Sorry about that. So frustrating. Stupid Windows 10 updates. Anyway, we're back and we are talking about Witness. Witness is the game by, you were saying before, Starry Games, not great at keeping their stuff in print or whatever it is. I don't know how well it did and all that stuff.
No one's heard of it. I don't think it even got released in the UK, actually. I don't think it got a UK release. Oh, wow. Not a proper one.
This game is awesome. Innovative as all get out, like I said. It is a very innovative game, and like I love innovative games. This is a 4-player only game, and it's a bunch of books, really. So everybody plays a character, and you have books that basically present a case. So like there's the case is you're 4 people, and you're trying to solve something that happened, and each person has limited information. So you have to whisper it whatever limited information that you have, you whisper that thing to another person, and then that other person, let's say to your left, will whisper something into your ear. So each person has a little bit of information and they're passing it along to each other. So slowly people are getting more and more of the picture, right? So like, let's say, there was a murder that happened and it was done with a knife. And another person knows that it was done in the kitchen. I'm losing the clue things, right? And another person saw, Mr. Mortimer walking out or whatever it is. They're whispering that around, and eventually, you only have 3 rounds of this, so you don't have enough time to fill the full picture. But then you have that whisper round, then you kind of, figuring out, okay, did we share enough information where everybody has the whole picture? And then at the end, you get these questions, and you have to answer the questions correctly. If you don't answer the questions correctly, you get lower and lower score, and you're just going to bottom out if people don't know enough. Holy moly! Like you seeing, we are loving on these limited information co-ops. We just had Magic Maze. Deception Murder in Hong Kong is another one of these type of things where there's limited information. You're kind of figuring out what's going on to do. Witness is another one. I adore this game. It is limited in the sense that once you play a case, you can't play it with the same group. But there's a lot of cases. Like there's a lot of stuff in this book. You can kind of go on and on. I've only played a couple of the cases, maybe like 10 or so, and I still feel like, oh my God, there's so much to explore in this book. I really, really like it. So this was number 34 on my list, 77 on Luke's list. 77 means that you liked it, but maybe there was a little bit something there. What was the hang up for you on Witness?
I think just the fact that it is quite limited, you must have that group of 4 players, and this is once you've done it, because you said you can't play the same case with the same players, you technically can't really play the same case yourself, because you're going to get those memory aspects where it's like, oh yeah, I remember that's how this case goes down. So it's a one-shot wonder of it. The whispering thing seems to work. I mean, the easy cases aren't too difficult to do, and the hard ones get kind of ridiculous on how much information you've got to pass. And no, I still enjoy it, but I haven't had as much time with this, mainly because the only times I've been able to play this is when I'm overseas, because nobody in the UK, I don't think the UK ever got this in retail, because I never saw this in the shop or on an online store. So it's mainly when I've gone to Essen that somebody is like, oh yeah, you've heard of Witness, right? Oh yeah, this is a decent one. Can we have a few games of that? Because they don't take very long. The cases are dealt with reasonably quickly, and if we've had the fixed amount of 4, and there's been the occasional time it's popped up where somebody from overseas has come over and has the game with them. But yeah, it's just, like I say, limited time to really. You've done 10 cases. I've probably done about what, like 3 or 4, at max. And yeah, I would like to see this here, but it's never going to happen because your story just do not keep their stuff going. I don't know what their game is.
And no one is talking about the game really. I mean, I think we've moved on. There's a lot of we've got the escape room games now, which we haven't even talked about those yet, which have kind of replaced that, everybody has limited stuff trying to figure things out type, or scratches that similar itch. And, there's all these other limited information things out. Plus, like, the act of whispering is a little intimate. Like, you're not going to do it with a bunch of people who you don't know. It's like, oh, I'm going to lean over into your ear. And you, who I don't know, and I don't know what's in there. Did
you know? I love you.
I'm okay.
No,
it is not for everybody. It is not even for most people. But if it hits that solving cases, working together, I adore this game. It's
different and unique. That's another plus point. So
definitely. Okay, so our next one, I think we both own this, or we both have this laying around. Okay, our first shared show and tell over here.
Hey.
And weird one to be our
that's
first.
Me. That's Jason. There you go.
I don't mind. I'm proud. I'll be the girlfriend, sure. Actually, you know what, Luke? It's higher on your list, so you can go ahead and break it down. So it's 27 on your list, 80 on mine. It's a little bit low for me. I'll get to why in a second, but yeah, tell us why you enjoyed this so much.
I say plus points, unique. No other game is like this. This is like so different, and you can argue that it's not fully co-op. I mean, you can sort of go, oh yeah, well somebody had a better time in the relationship than you, but then the best way for you to actually do well in this is actually to try and gel together with the relationship. And it's different playing styles as to whether you're playing with your spouse or girlfriend. because the most I've played this with is with my girlfriend, and it's a little bit above her station in terms of how complex a game she wants, but she enjoyed what we've done. It is absolute hilarious when you play this with just some random other person, like, or a mate of yours. If I take this to a game night and play it with a bloke, like mate of mine or something, and it's just hilarious. It's like, I'll take the girlfriend. It's like, you don't know me. It's like, it is crazy funny, like, with the roleplay aspect. And I think that's one thing that elevates it for me, just the fact that you roleplay your character, you ham it up, you get into it, but mechanically it works quite well as well, because you've got that getting into opponents' head scenes, and that's one thing I do like in a lot of games. Like, I'm thinking this, what are they thinking? And you bring out the scenario, because you're effectively bringing out little story cards to say, like, I mean, the first scenario is a first date. So you've just met each other, you go to this date. How do you pick the restaurant? You hear a party in the distance. Do you go gate crash it, or is it not really for you? And based on what personality traits you've generated at the start of the game, because you always generate a new character, it's a bit like an RPG in that sense, will dictate what answers you're likely to give, and you're thinking, well, what would they pick based on their character? And it does require you to get into it, because if someone plays this in a dry sense and like tries to game the system, it's not as good. Because they won't give the answers you're kind of expecting. But if you role play it, you can just have a blast with this one. And I give it props just because it's truly unique, very different, well produced. I mean, this is like something that should have come out of a Kickstarter, in terms of its production quality. It feels like a deluxe version. And yeah, it's just different. I mean, there's no way you could make this more than 2 players, but so it doesn't hit the table as often for me just because it is fixed at 2. But yeah, it's a good solid one if it does come out, just because it's like, you know what, I just want to have a laugh, and this one I can do it with.
I found the game elements to be a little intrusive. So like, you're still trying to accomplish your personal goals, and it might take you a little bit to kind of come up with a character, because there's different traits. Like, you can be greedy, and you can be whatever, and you're trying to choose the choices that align with what your personal goals are in order to maximize your score. So you might look a little bit schizophrenic trying to accomplish, like, be all of those different things. So I had a hard time kind of thinking of a whole character. That's kind of how I think. I'm an RPG guy at the end of the day. So I felt like I wish I could mold it a little bit more in my own image, but that's me bringing stuff to the game. So that's only to get in the way of my enjoyment of the game, which is different than how good the game is. The game is really good. The game is really fun, innovative, all that kind of thing. I think they have tried to gamify an interpersonal relationship as well as you can. For me personally, I just don't. I need more plays. I need more play. Maybe I need to play with. My wife doesn't game. I brought home this giant box. She's like, I'm not playing that. It's like, no. No. So I need to find it, play it more. But that was kind of my initial impressions off a couple of plays. So but I am willing to look forward to it, and it is an innovative, awesome game. Still made my list. If I get more plays with the right people, it might just shoot up because it is that good. So that is Fog of Love. So the last game that we are going to talk about for this section, we are going to go, like, we've presented a lot of innovative games over here. We are going to go with a classic of the genre. This is an old game. A lot of games have been kind of built on this. Speaking of, like, fantasy and adventures and dungeon crawls and blah, 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 blah. Runebound.
And we're pretty equal on this one, actually.
We are pretty much equal. 57 on mine, 49 on yours.
So it makes no difference, really.
Not really. And I guess it's in the same boat as Pandemic: The Cure, of like, we kind of know where this is in the space. It is not best in show. I don't think either of us think it's best in show. It is not a bad time. I think it's if you want to get a particular type of experience of overland adventure. So like we talked about how Mage Knight replicates the overland adventure aspect of the RPG, which is different than a dungeon crawl. When you're doing overland adventure, it's more exploratory. It's more going over hills and mountains and stuff like that. And there's more of a sense of like kind of build up, and you're meeting. Well, while you're building up in towns. So like you're visiting towns, and there's like a lot of flavor text. You're not doing too much of that in the dungeon unless you're meeting the mole people, or some random shopkeeper. I hate when games do that. It's like, oh, I have a full suite of weapons in my dark, dank cave. No.
They thought I was crazy to build my shop in a dungeon.
But here we are. In overland adventure games, that is totally appropriate, and it's expected. And you can put in all sorts of like different wrinkles, like, you know, this city has this thing and that city has that thing. You're gonna get that feeling. It has a good arcing system. It's Fantasy Flight, so you're gonna have dice resolution and randomness, and there's like this weird coin flipping thing that's there. I don't want to get too much into it. I just like, because it's not our favorite, but it's still solid. It's still rock solid game. For the 3rd edition, you need the unshakable, breakable something.
Unshakable
expansion
or something. Yeah, I can remember.
Yeah. You need that expansion to play co-op, which I think is a downside of the game. A downside of the presentation. It's one of those things where it's like the original Runebound was, or the 2nd edition at least, had co-op, you know, kind of throughout. And I'm not sure why they took it out. Actually, I am sure why they took it out, because they can make the solo players, the co-op players, buy an expansion. It's one of those things like minimum viable product. We can buy, you know, they're going to buy this and the expansions. Let's separate them out. Don't like it. But whatever. I fell for it. Still good. Still good. They're releasing scenario packs. They're supporting it. It's fun. A lot of downtime too. There's not a lot of interaction among players. Like, you know, you don't have a lot to do outside of your turn. So I definitely recommend it's at lower player counts, but fun. You know, that's, you know, I can't say too much bad about it. Runebound.
It's good, decent fun. But you do need the co-op. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of it with the competitive side.
No.
Bit like that. You know, when the expansion came out and brought the co-op back, that was when it's like, oh, you can play this in co-op now. Let's try it in co-op. Oh yeah, this is more enjoyable, subject to downtime, and it's going to be a lengthy one. But it's kind of like, most people will play the Mage Knight for, you know, the big, long, lengthy sort of fantasy co-op or something like that. You know, this is kind of like, well, if I'm going to play a co-op that's going to be that lengthy and involved, chances are I would fall to Runebound over that one. You know, if I'm going to pick a lengthy one.
Right. Yeah, you know, I don't have too much more to say about that. It hits the table every once in a while whenever I want that overland adventure type thing. It is random. It's Fantasy Flight, so it's going to have like the randomness, and it's kind of, you know, fun in that way. Don't like invest a whole lot of like thinking of like, I'm going to make my character and it's going to be this and this. No. You're here for I think of it as Talisman Advanced.
Yeah, you get the story elements of it, and you do get the randomness of it. I mean, I played with the friend of mine who owns the game. You know, we played with his wife and myself, 3 of us. I think his wife died from the same, I forget what monster it was. It was kind of like a half man, half gator thing. It was like a big lizard or crocodile-like creature. I think she died from it 3 times in a row. Like, literally the same creature came up and killed her in the same place as her. Because I think they stick around, don't they? Yeah, they when you do it. So she was determined to go back and eventually kill this thing, but it managed to kill her 3 times in a row. And it's just like, basically like playing a Zelda game, and you... it's like you're failing at the same boss, and the boss is eventually getting bored.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what makes it stick out. That probably happens more in an overland adventure game than a dungeon crawl. In a dungeon crawl, they're like things are crawling at you, spitting out at you, and it's more of like a tactical experience. Overland adventure, the story's there, the narrative's there. There's all sorts of, you know, if you fail to kill a monster, it's still chilling out there, and it's like haunting you for the 2 hours that you have remaining in the game, and there's all sorts of different stories that are possible. You know, Talisman is not a good game. If you guys know Talisman, it's like this old fantasy kind of, I call it fantasy Monopoly, where it's like, you know, you're just going around the board and random crap happens. That's not a good game, but I can't deny that it is like, it generates fun stories. Runebound gamifies that. Runebound gives you a more robust map world to explore, and you know, it's a really rip-roaring good time if that is what you're looking for. So that's one of those things. Like it executes what it's trying to do very well. So that is going to be our 41 through 60. Oh man, we are finally past like the games that either we haven't played or like one person's feeling not so whatever about them and the other one's enthusiastic, which can be fun in its own right. These top 40 games are games we both love. Maybe not to the extent, so one person may love it more than another, but like these 40 games, they're all excellent co-ops. And
there's a few there I can see where there is still like a disparity between like one really loves it and the other one not as much, but there isn't a single one coming up where we didn't put it on the list.
So if you like arguing, we're going to get some arguments. Don't worry about that. It's not just going to be a love fest.
Some of these will be love fest, but some of them will be like, okay, seriously, why is it higher for you than me? But yeah, there's not a single was it? If it was 111, it meant that it didn't hit one of our lists. Like we didn't rate it at all. There isn't a single one of those now coming up. Mage Knight was the last one.
Yep, and it was my number 2. So like, it would literally have to be someone put it number 1 and the other put it 111. That's not gonna happen. All right, so once again, this is Jason from Every Night is Game Night Podcast. That is Luke from the Broken Meeple. We are going to say goodbye and see you later. Hopefully, tune in for the next one.
Yep. See you next time, guys.
Take care.